Hello and welcome to my channel Inspiring Life Changes. My name's Colette and I'm here today to do a astrology reading for the new moon that's happening in Taurus. It's happening today in some parts of the world. For those of us, sorry if my throat's gone a bit croaky. For those of us in the UK, it's not taking place until later tonight, early hours of the morning, really. So it's taking place in the UK at 03:26 minutes, I think it is, which is interesting because the full moon and the sun are going to be at 03 and 24 minutes themselves. So as I said, both the sun and the moon are going to be in Taurus, and Taurus is the sign of Earth. It's a very grounded sign. It's a very physical realm sign. It rules all the senses. And, sorry, itchy nose. And it's very practical. Taurus is a very practical sign. It likes to know what's what. So the sun and the moon represent the masculine and the feminine energies. They come together in a conjunction, which is why the moon is new, because it has no light from the sun on it. So yeah, new, dark. It's a dark moon. You can't see it because the light of the sun is hidden at this point in time from the moon. So it's kind of in a place of its own, the moon. It's almost kind of like, how can you put it? Like it's kind of going into itself. It's more inner than it is outer. But it is beginning to get into that phase where it's going to start showing itself again, because it's after the new moon, it starts to grow into the full moon, and then again it will wane, as it's called, into the new moon again. So the new moon cycle is from new to full, and it waxes during that time. We call the moon that as it gets bigger, it's waxing, and as it grows smaller, it's waning. So the new moon comes after the period of the full moon and the waning moon. So, yeah, the new moon and the sun coming together is kind of like planting a seed, and it reminds me very much of the card in the tarot deck, the Page of Pentacles. It's about planting seeds, and I always, especially because it's in Taurus as well, this particular time, it is a Taurian Taurus new moon, and so the energy is very much focused on the kind of physical realm, and the planting of seeds and ideas is what the new moon is all about. It's kind of communicating with the sun about what is going to take place over this kind of cycle from the Taurus new moon through to the Gemini new moon. What are the new things that are being planted on an individual level, but also on a collective level as well. So again, it's like setting the scene. It's like setting the, putting the parts in play, or a bit like the tarot card, the Page of Pentacles card. It's literally like taking that seed and planting it into a very fertile soil. And because it's Taurus moon, it's going to be fertile soil. So it's a time of uniting, of unifying our own energies and bringing something new into our lives, which we can kind of bring into germination and watch it grow, which again is the Page of Pentacles energy. It's kind of taking something at its very smallest seed level and kind of looking after it, nurturing it, caring it, watching it grow. Planting a seed, yeah. And both the sun and the moon, previously to this new moon, have both gone through squares with Saturn. in Aquarius. The Sun does its square first, which is followed by the Moon. And there is quite a lot of square energy in this new moon time period, because the not only is Sun and the Moon squaring over to Saturn, we also have we also have squares from, I'm trying to think, I think it's Pluto and Jupiter as well, which is squaring the Moon as well at some point before the Moon has moved forward into the Taurus energy as well, because the Sun is only at 3 degrees along with the Moon. So the Moon has just kind of entered Taurus before it starts its new moon actual exact point. So previous to that, it has actually gone through a square with Pluto and Jupiter as well. So, but the Sun and the Moon squares with Saturn, because Saturn is at 1 degrees of Aquarius at this moment in time, almost 2 degrees. It's at 1 degrees 41 minutes, so nearly 2 degrees. And it has been squaring with the Sun since it first entered Taurus. So the Taurus energy and the Aquarius energy have been kind of squaring off with each other ever since the Sun, because again it's all to do with the orb of influence, and the Sun being so huge and Saturn being so huge, it's like their orb of influence is about 10 degrees. So whenever one planet comes into that orb of influence, it's going to get affected by it, and it will be kind of over a longer period of time as well. So with this Saturn and Sun square energy, it's a longer lasting energy, whereas with the Moon it's going to be a lot quicker and it's going to be over a lot faster. But the Moon, of course, is our emotions. It's how we feel and sense things. It's our deeper feeling. It's the feeling realm, really. The Moon, it's our, like I say, it is our emotions. We are driven kind of in many ways by our feelings and our emotions. So the square of the Sun is pointing to and highlighting the energy of all the things that are not working for us, to do with the Aquarian energy as well, with Saturn itself. So whatever it is that isn't working for us, and this is again, it's individual, but it is also very much on a collective level as well, because Saturn in particular being one of the bigger outer planets and having more of an influence for a longer period of time, it stays in a sign for roughly 2.5 years. It kind of has a longer lasting effect on our psyches and on our kind of day-to-day life, as well as on the bigger scheme of what happens on our planet, because it rules establishments, it rules policies, politics, governments, control systems. It's all that kind of establishment stuff. So having now moved into Aquarius, it's to do with the people. Aquarius is all about the people. The house of Aquarius literally rules friends and communities. So Saturn has been and still is putting very tight restrictions on us all at this moment in time, having recently moved into Saturn. And now the Sun being in this kind of square energy is forcing us to look at what it is that Saturn is kind of restricting us from, as well as looking at what it is that we don't want in our lives anymore. What do we not want to take with us as we move forward into this new energy? What is it that we no longer need? What is it that's no longer working for us? What is it that we can leave behind? And this can also be to do with friendships as well, because Saturn, like I said, sorry, Aquarius, like I said, does rule friendships and communities as well. And with us all being so very kind of closely involved, shall we say, at this moment in time, it is really kind of highlighting those community energies and really kind of looking to see whether those community energies are working well together or whether they're very kind of disjointed, and how it can be brought together strong with a much more stronger kind of community energy or vibe. And in some ways it's kind of turning the clock back in some ways, because it's kind of saying, you know, this is how it used to be, or it has been in the past, before people became so kind of insular in their own homes. And now it's almost like, because we're being forced to be insular in our own homes, we're kind of pushing beyond those boundaries, and we're actually being out there and kind of doing more with our neighbours, and people are saying hello to each other that have lived on the same street but have never even recognised each other before, or, you know, so it's an interesting energy that is being looked at and being kind of forcing us in many ways to kind of see where we're at in a community level, on a community basis. How do we live our lives together when we're living so kind of, you know, closely with other people, but at the same time very distanced from other people previously, whereas now I think we're becoming stronger with other people around us as well. So and also somehow it's kind of making us look at this on a world level as well, like, you know, the community, we all have our own individual communities, but then kind of also seeing that the world itself is like a global village or a global community. And it's kind of like really highlighting, the sun is really kind of showing us those potentials that are there within each and every one of these communities for change as well, for the better. So Saturn always works through adversity as well. It's an adverse planet. It always kind of, even though it may seem as though it's all against us, shall we say, that what's happening we don't like, it feels wrong, it doesn't suit us. Saturn is actually, because it is the kind of taskmaster, it kind of forces us to grow up. It's about maturing, it's about mastery, it's about kind of really learning the lessons that we need to learn. And so at this time, Saturn is really kind of tightening, I feel, those screws on us at the moment, and really saying, like, you know, dig down and learn these lessons, learn what you need to learn from this individually and again collectively. So the moon, coming on to the moon, as I said, it's our emotions, and it too has been in an exact square with Saturn. And at 3 degrees Taurus, the moon is in a place or a sign which it likes to be in, which is Taurus. Now the last moon that we had, the full moon, not the previous new moon, but the full moon was in the sign of Libra, which is again a place that the moon likes to be, which I spoke about in my previous video as well, that it's a comfortable place. They're both ruled by Venus, both the moon and both Taurus and Libra are ruled by Venus, which is where both of those moons have taken place, from the last full moon to this new moon. So the moon should really have kind of found a comfort in being in Taurus and also being in Libra. But unfortunately, the same as previously with the full moon in Libra, which I spoke about in my Libra full moon video, which you can go and check out if you haven't watched it already, there is a discomfort there. There's an energy. Last time with Libra, it was a strange connection or transit, kind of, how can you put it, a strange angle to the Neptune energy that was happening last time, and so it didn't feel comfortable in that moon. There was something that wasn't quite, and it kind of fitted very well with the whole thing that's happening again across the planet, of this uncomfort and this kind of Libra energy all about relationships. But this time, this uncomfort and the kind of not being able to completely relaxed type of energy, which we will be picking up on as well. That's the thing about it as well, is that we will pick up on this energy. It's coming from this square, and this square to Saturn is really saying that well, for a start, both Taurus and Aquarius are fixed signs as well. They're both fixed signs. So the moon being our emotions and Saturn being our limitations and our kind of, you know, constriction energy. The moon is not feeling as though it's completely being able to, how can I put, like, express itself, or yeah, its feelings. It's like it knows how it feels, but it can't quite get it out. It can't quite express it. It can't quite, like, say why it feels the way it's feeling. What is it that's not quite sitting comfortably with it? Why isn't it quite aligned in the way that it should be? It's that kind of energy. So yeah, like I was saying, they're both fixed signs, Taurus and Aquarius, both fixed signs. And neither Taurus or Aquarius like change, even though Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which is all about the planet of change. It's also ruled by Saturn, which was its original ruler before Uranus was found. It was ruled by Saturn, and Uranus was found in, I think it was 1781. It's 1781. I'm sure I wrote it down somewhere. Anyway, so up until that point, it was always ruled by Saturn, and Saturn again was the kind of taskmaster, the kind of heavier, kind of more kind of dour energy, kind of an energy of kind of all work and no play, really. The Saturn energy, it's kind of like, you know, keep your nose to the grindstone if you want to accomplish this. You know, if you want to get anywhere in life, you have to get your head down and kind of really, you know, ignore everything else and just really focus. That's really kind of Saturn energy. Saturn energy tends not to give up as well. It tends to be an energy where it will kind of, if you think of the mountain goat, which is the symbol, even though it does have a fish's tail, the mountain goat is kind of a symbol of the Capricorn energy, which is forever kind of trying to get higher and higher and higher. So it's like it's never enough. For the Capricorn energy, it will get to a certain point and Saturn will kind of say to it, you know, that's not where you need to be. You need to keep going. You need to, you know, so it's a real, quite strong taskmaster. And yeah, so the Uranus energy is completely different energy. Uranus energy is all about the kind of change and innovation and things that are new and Another thing about Saturn is it's very traditional. So there is this kind of conflict in energy as well in Aquarius. But there's also Aquarian people can be like that as well. They can have this kind of really wacky side to them, but at the same time they can be quite traditional in how they kind of do things or how they approach people. There can be something that's they can be really way out there, and then all of a sudden they can shock you completely by just being very ordinary and very kind of like, traditional, like this is how it's always been. So there is this conflict between the Aquarius energies of Saturn and Uranus as well. But I feel that the more we kind of move into this kind of Aquarian age, which is what's happening now, more the Uranus energy will kind of kick in and become much more the bigger role player in this story that's kind of unfolding here. So, where are we? A lot of this is off the top of my head as well as I'm reading this or as I'm doing this. I've got my notes here and I'm just kind of looking back at them and then kind of just ad-libbing a lot of the stuff that kind of comes into my head again as I'm doing this. So you'll have to kind of bear with me as I go through this. So the change, Taurus especially, Taurus does not like change, and it tends to really dig its feet in, which is another reason why Taurus is kind of seen as being the stubborn bull as well. It kind of like, once its mind's made up, hell and high water, won't move it. If it's made its mind up, that's it, end of. So it will resist with all its might change that feels wrong or feels uncomfortable or doesn't suit it or just doesn't kind of fit in its understanding of things as well. And with the new moon being in Taurus, there is that kind of energy with that for this moon as well, because the moon is literally making that square across to Saturn. So that's kind of where that uncomfortable energy is coming from as well. Plus the fact that at the same time that this new moon is taking place, both the sun and the moon are conjuncting Uranus, which is at 6 degrees Taurus as well. So not only are they squaring off to the energy of Aquarius, they are also conjuncting the energy of Uranus. So you've got both those kind of energies of the Aquarius ruled sign kind of hitting, shall we say, at the same time this new moon. So both the sun and the moon are kind of in this kind of turmoil energy of tradition and change, and it's kind of like, they're caught in between both. And I feel that, that's exactly where we are at this moment in time on this planet right now. We're coming out of the old, out of the traditional, out of what we've known forever. And we're moving into this new world as the other world, the old world, is kind of crumbling around our ears, and we can see it all taking place in every aspect around us. And the changes are coming in, but we're kind of like, are we ready for them? Do we know them? We don't know them, so there's this kind of, again, this unknown. The unknown realm is always something that is like that, we tend to go, I don't know what it's going to be like. I haven't experienced it. I don't know if I should, I don't know if I shouldn't. So there's that kind of energy going on with us as well at the moment. It's like so many of us are kind of fed up with the way that things have been for so long now that we want change. But it's like, change at what cost as well? And that's another thing about this moon in Taurus, because Taurus is all about cost, finances. What's it going to cost me? Is it going to cost me physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually even? What's the cost? So that's another thing that we're being asked to look at during the time of this Sun and full moon conjunction. What is the price that we are willing to pay? What is the value of what we are losing or what we are gaining from this as well? So they are, again, bigger kind of issues that are going to come up for us during the time of this new moon. And Taurus is also very much about the environment as well. It's also about the senses, the sensual world, the environment, the globe, the world in general, our kind of smaller environment, again, which can include communities, but also the environment as in the pollution and the, you know, how is this environment being looked after? What is the price that we are paying, again, to have what we want, to have our desires met? Because that's another thing with Taurus as well. It's like desire. What does it desire? But also, what is the price here that we are being asked to pay? So during this time of the new moon, because of the Saturn square as well, we're being asked, because the square is a challenging aspect. A square is always a challenging aspect, and when it's squaring something like Saturn, it's kind of even more so. And so it's kind of really putting a stop to the energies in play at this moment in time. It's like the world is taking a breather. Like we're being asked to kind of take a deep breath and really kind of stop and look and think and question ourselves as well as to what matters most to us in our lives. What is it that we really do value? What is it that we really do want to hold on to? And what is it that we no longer need, and what do we just need to let go of and put in that past, and allow ourselves in many ways, by letting go of whatever it is, to make space for something new to come in. Because until we can let go of what we are kind of living through or holding on to or keep reenacting in many ways, we can't change it. We can't bring that space around or bring that space in order for something new to be there. It's kind of like, you know, clearing out a room, emptying that space, emptying your life in many ways. And that again can be emotionally as well as physically and mentally as well. And it can also be very kind of like, you know, you have to say goodbye to some things that you may not want to say goodbye to. But in order to be able to move forward with your own life and your own progression and your own kind of growth in many ways, you need to let go of the things that are no longer working with you or for you. So a few hours later, after the new moon occurs, it will come into an exact conjunct with Uranus. Uranus is kind of the maverick planet, really. Uranus, kind of out of all the planets, it kind of does the opposite of everything else. It spins the wrong way, and it spins that way rather than kind of that way. It spins on a different axis angle to the rest of the planets. So it's kind of a bit of a law unto itself, shall we say. It doesn't kind of fit in with the rest of the dictates of the solar system or the other planets. It doesn't follow the rules, so to speak. It kind of likes to stand out in a crowd and kind of do its own thing, go its own way, take its own path. And that's very much the kind of energy that is going to be kicking in quite soon, because not only is the moon going to be exact after it's been new and is just beginning to start kind of growing, it will be kind of coming out of that new exact new spot, and so as it kind of leaves that, it's already moving into its kind of waxing period, shall we say. So by the time, I know it's only a few hours later, but by the time it reaches Uranus, it's already kind of gone through its new moon phase, even though the new moon energy itself will last up until the next new moon. The new moon itself is already kind of growing and changing. And so it will hit Uranus, which was found in 1781, because it says so here. And become exact. And Uranus is also squaring over to Saturn at the same time as well. So not only is the Sun and the Moon squaring over to Saturn, we also have Uranus squaring over to Saturn. So there is a lot of square energy around this whole new moon, as I was speaking of earlier. There's a lot of square energy. So there's a lot of challenges that we're being put through right at this time of this new moon period, which in itself makes it a difficult following period as well, because like I said, the kind of energy of these planets is not going away anytime soon either. So Saturn, who is the son of Uranus, is doing his best and has been doing his best ever since Saturn moved into Aquarius and squaring Uranus, his father. He's been doing his best, as I said in my previous video, to keep the energy of Uranus out of Aquarius. It's almost like Saturn is saying, nope, you're not coming in, you're not going to be bringing that change in, you're not going to be, I'm not going to allow you to free the people, really, which is what the Uranus and Aquarius energy is all about. It's kind of, no, Saturn is very strong in his convictions, and basically it's saying, you know, he's keeping his father out. He's kind of saying, that picture that you've got for change in your head that I know that you've got, I'm keeping it on lockdown. I'm stopping you from coming in here and changing it. So you can see or think of Saturn as the old order, the establishment, and you can see Uranus as the people, as the change, as the new energy that is going to bring in this incredible new new world in many ways, this new kind of energy of innovation and change and sudden out of the blue unexpected kind of just revelations of things as well. It's really going to, later down the line, it's really going to shift things so hugely and so dramatically that I feel that even in kind of 5 years' time, we'll look back and we'll go, wow, how much has changed, you know. So even though the moon is only there for a short while, it will set up a whole new emotionally charged energy, which is what the moon does. So when the moon hits the energy of Uranus and becomes conjunct exact, it's going to set up this new emotional energy within the Uranus energy. So the two of them together, it's kind of like the moon is going to it's going to emotionally charge things. So we ourselves are going to pick up on that emotionally charged energy, and we're going to want change. We're going to want things to kind of stop being the way that they are at this moment in time. And we're going to get even more fed up with what Saturn's up to in Aquarius. and his kind of lockdown energy that he's got going on at this moment in time. But in 3 days' time, because the sun moves 1 degree a day, so in 3 days' time the sun is also going to conjunct with Uranus and square over to Aquarius as well. So it will be Uranus and the sun together squaring Saturn. And when that happens, it's like the sun kind of highlights that Uranus energy. It kind of brings that whole energy alive. It kind of, the emotionally charged energy from the moon that's still there, and the kind of sun kind of extra input, if you like, the kind of extra boost from the sun's energy is going to kind of shift the energy of this Saturn over here. It's almost like it's going to be too much for it. It's almost like it's going to feel it kind of like, you know, being pushed back at it, in the sense of like, how can I explain it? I'm seeing it or feeling it kind of like one of those video games that your kids play, where you've got kind of, you know, something where they hit something and it kind of rebounds back. That's kind of the energy that I'm feeling. It's going to be like it's rebounding energy. So as much as Saturn is trying to stop everything and control everything and restrict everything and keep everything as it has been and as it wants it to stay, this energy here from both the sun and Uranus are just going to say, enough. Enough's enough. And they're really going to kind of force Saturn into a position of having to kind of shift that energy. And how it came through to me yesterday is it's going to be like a spark. It's going to be the flame, the light, the boost that will kickstart Uranus into a stronger sense of its own energy, which is all about change, shifting, the unexpected, liberation of the higher mind as well, because Uranus is beyond Saturn. Uranus is the next planet out beyond Saturn, Saturn being our limitations because it's as far as we can see with the naked eye in our solar system. Uranus is the next planet out, but it's a lot further out, and it's kind of out there. It's more higher mind consciousness energy. It's kind of the higher realms, if you like. It's to do with the third eye, it's to do with Kundalini energy, and it is to do with change. And so it is kind of a bit like the higher mind versus Saturn, which is the limitation of the physical realm as well. So there is kind of this battle that is taking place, I feel, at this moment on time on the planet as well as up in the heavens, this battle which we are kind of seeing take place down here. If you're taking any notice of what's happening on the globe, you will probably be seeing what's happening here. There is this mass kind of shifting of energies, and it is almost like we're having to kind of, you know, take sides as to whether we go, are we Uranus or are we Saturn? And oddly enough, they are both the rulers of Aquarius energy, which is really interesting. But are we for the old or are we for the new? But it is also about a collective awakening as well. Uranus is pushing beyond the physical, limiting old values of Saturn. So it is out with the old and in with the new. The Sun conjuncts Uranus at 06:24 minutes on April the 26th at 09:48 UK time. And what I found really interesting as well, because I quite like number synchronicities, shall we say, and the new moon is at 03 and 24 minutes, and oh, sorry, yeah, 24 minutes, but it takes place at 03 and 26 minutes, hours in the morning. And so you have also it being on April the 26th that the Sun is going to conjunct with Uranus. And also this 24 as well, because they're all at 24 degrees as well. So I just found that an interesting kind of little synchronicity there. I kind of tend to pick up on these little things. So it will also be taking place for other people in the world on the 25th. It's only in the UK that it's going to take place on the 26th. So this really is the turning point of our current story. And it is all about bringing in rebellion, liberation and freedom. And the ruler of this new moon in Taurus, being Venus, is now at 15 degrees of Gemini. At the time of the full moon, it's at 15 degrees exactly. So it's halfway through Gemini. But it has entered its shadow point at 05 degrees. And it is going to go retrograde on May the 12th at 21 degrees, I think it is, 21 degrees and 50 minutes. And so it will return from that point of 21 degrees in Gemini, it will return all the way back to the 05 degree point where it first went into its shadow period. And that's going to take place in June. On June the 24th, once it reached that 05 point, it will then station direct until it starts moving forward again, until it comes out of its shadow period, which will be at the end of July. I think it's around about July the 25th or something. 25th, 26th, something like that. But it will then still have to go from that 21 degree point right the way through to the end of Gemini, which will take it through to August. So Venus is going to be in Gemini right through for the next 4 months, which is a long time. Similar period of time to when we had Mercury going retrograde in Pisces, which only recently we've just come out of that as well. So during this time, Venus is going to bring in many choices because it's in Gemini. It's in the area that's ruled, or the sign that's ruled by Mercury. It's all about the mind. It's all about the thought processes. And Gemini is the mercurial ruled energy. And in the tarot deck, and it's interesting because the tarot kind of came into this reading yesterday a couple of times, and I've never really brought the tarot into astrology. I bring astrology into tarot, but I've never really brought tarot into astrology. So yesterday it was kind of reversing, which I found quite interesting. And basically the card that this reminds me of is, because it represents literally the magician in the tarot deck is ruled by Mercury, Gemini energy. And it is all about manifestation. Mercury, also known as Hermes and Troth, and gives us the ability to bring the unknown into the known and ground it in the physical world. That's the energy of the magician. That's what the magician does. It brings all the elements together so that we can create something in the physical realm. Taurus, Venus, our potential mind, our logical thinking world. Taurus, of course, being about our values and our wants, our desires, our finances, again to do with our values. But in Gemini, it's all about how we think about it, it's how we communicate it, it's how we process it for ourselves as well. But this could also, again, be the collective, bigger story that's taking place here. And this is going to be for 4 months. So for 4 months, we're going to be given a lot of new ways of looking at things, I think. And so because everything starts with a thought, which is what the manifestation energy is all about as well, is it starts with a thought, and from that thought you put in your emotions, and from your emotion the creativity rises, and then you kind of bring it into that physical realm. So it all starts with a thought. So what it's kind of saying to me with this Venus Gemini energy is be careful of what you're thinking. Watch your thoughts. Watch where they're taking you. Where are they leading you? I think I spoke a little bit about this in the last reading as well, about how our thoughts and our thought processes can create our future and our reality around us. So, yeah, so what thoughts are you thinking and bringing into the potential realm of creating them? So that's how it all begins. It's kind of the thought process is the potential. It's there as a seed, as a potential, an idea, which if you kind of nurture and feed and look after it, it will kind of become something real, which can either be for the good or it can be for the bad. It all depends where your thought process take you and the kind of creative process that you go down, and allow your mind to kind of take you on. You know, your mind can run away so quickly, and you can be kind of caught up in those thoughts that just kind of keep going over and over and over. And in the environment, like atmosphere, basically, that we're living in at the moment, it's just everywhere. The fear, the kind of, you know, everywhere you go. I went down to the shops earlier today, and the radio's on, and all you hear constantly is how many people are suffering from this illness, and how many, and it is just like it's constantly playing in people's heads. It's like they constantly want to remind us, you know, we mustn't forget this, we must not ignore it, we must not, you know, it's like it's got to be put into our brains somehow, some way. They must make us fearful of this. They must make us want to kind of, you know, give our power away to them. And that's really what it's all about. It's about giving your power away. This is kind of like, in my eyes anyway, and in my opinion, this is kind of a last ditch attempt for the crumbling old world to, it's almost like, you know, they're grasping, really grasping at holding on to it as hard as they possibly can, because they know that things are changing, and changing rapidly and fast. So you really have to watch your thoughts. You really have to try somehow to protect yourself from that constant barrage. Turn off the news, don't read the papers, stay away from it as much as you possibly can if you want to keep a healthy mind over the next 4 months, because this is really what it's all about. It's about keeping a healthy attitude to all of this. So Mercury itself, which is the ruler of Gemini, is at 20 degrees and 42 minutes, and it's in Aries at last, but it's zipping through Aries pretty damn quickly. It's left the watery realm of confusing Pisces far behind and moved into the quicker, faster, active ways of thinking and communicating. So it's much more speeded up now. It's dried off, it's come out of watery Pisces, and it's kind of active, it's doing, it's wanting to kind of make things happen. And in Aries it can be quite hot-headed, it can be quite it's a fast, fast ruled sign, so it's kind of revved up and it's wanting to go, and it could really be why my my mouth itself is going 10 to the dozen at the moment, and my thought processes are really fast, and sometimes my tongue and my brain aren't quite connecting because everything wants to come out so fast. That's Aries energy. It's fast, it's active, it's doing, it's like really boof, 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 boof type of energy, best way to put it. But it's revved up and it's like ready to take on anything really, which may not be the best energy as well, because it can go over the top. Mercury in Aries can be an over the top kind of energy, that fire getting kind of how can you put it, getting exuberant or challenging or kind of aggressive even, kind of speaking before you think, actually like not doing the thought process needed behind what you're trying to say, literally. So you may want to take a breath and kind of step back before you just react when it comes to saying something at this moment in time as well. But it is making a square energy over to Jupiter. And Jupiter is all about expansion and expanding something. It's kind of making something bigger than it actually is as well. So there could also be a lot of stories out there that are kind of going to get blown out of proportion as well. A lot of people could kind of not twist the truth so much as expand it, so that, and in some ways that is really what we are seeing as well with the whole numbers, shall we say, that are out there at this moment in time, that they're expanded. It's all expanded. It's all kind of like, Jupiter, bigger than life, expectations bigger, the story's bigger, everything is bigger, communication is bigger. It's all like grand, this grandiose kind of energy of kind of expression as well. And of course Mercury also rules the lower levels of the media as well, so also be careful with that as well. Don't take everything that you hear and everything that you read as gospel, because a lot of it is done just to sell, just for not just for profit, but also for what's the word I'm trying to find here? I can't think, my brain is just switched off now. For exaggeration, that's not the word I'm thinking of, but it's like, that kind of, it's sold for, can't think of it, so I'm just going to give up on that and carry on with what it says here and see if it comes to me, because sometimes that happens. So let's move on to Pluto, because Pluto is at 24 degrees 59 minutes, or 25 degrees exactly. And Pluto is putting a stop an end, a finality to a certain style of behaving. To Mercury. It's making this square over to Mercury, along with Jupiter as well. So both Jupiter and both Pluto are squaring Mercury. And Jupiter, like I was saying, is expanding and everything, but now Pluto's coming along and it's kind of saying, look, you know, that's not necessarily how it is. So there's this kind of, again, this kind of conflicting or kind of dichotomy between the energies here, with kind of things being blown out of proportion, because they are, but then Pluto is also kind of bringing it to an end, saying, right, that's it. Fun's over. This is time for reevaluating things. This is time for kind of rechanging things. In many ways, it's time for digging down deeper under the kind of bigger, expansive story of what is out there, obviously in the open. And Pluto is saying, you know, you need to go deeper down in order to find the truth of what's actually being thrown out into the obvious, the kind of, you know, the public domain. And Mars, so I'll just read this bit with Jupiter as well, because Jupiter is at 26 degrees and 31 minutes. And that is expansive and expansion, but also at the same time being square to Mercury, it's challenging us and the mind to go beyond the boundaries of what it's so far aware of or willing to understand and accept as well. But I also feel that that is also the Pluto energy. So it's the Pluto and the Jupiter energy kind of mingled together, squaring over to Mercury, which is kind of bringing in this kind of need for us to and we've got the time to do it now as well. We've got the time to kind of go, all right, okay, let's go and have a look. Let's go and see where this leads. If I look at this and I look at this, like, you know, what's the truth here? What's the truth? Where's the actual truth lie between these two stories, and what I'm being told about why I'm having to stay in my home, and, you know, how bad this actually is compared to how bad it actually is, kind of thing. So that's, I think, the biggest story that's being put into the public awareness by Mercury, Mercury, Jupiter and Pluto. So moving on to Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, and Mars itself is moving away from Saturn. So it's had that conjunction with Saturn, and now it's moving away from Saturn, both still in Aquarius. Mars is at 16 degrees and 10 minutes. And it's making a really beautiful trine over to the Venus energy. So that's the masculine and the feminine trining each other. And trines are very easy flowing, easy going energies. And Venus being in Gemini, and Venus being about relationships and love, as well as our finances, etc., and our values, and, you know, our relationships fall in under that as well. They fall under what we value, people, how we value them, etc., how we value our relationships. But now this Mars and Venus energy is working together really nicely. It's like they're having this wonderful conversation now, where they have been squared off to each other previously. A few months back they went through this square where they were kind of not getting along, not communicating, not wanting to really listen to what the other one wanted to say. And now the energies are kind of, and then Mars went into a sextile. Oh, a semi-sextile, was it a sextile? I'm sure it was in a semi-sextile for a while with Venus, which was more of a kind of helpful energy. And now it's kind of moved on, and they're in this trining energy, which is a really nicely flowing energy. It's an energy that flows backwards and forwards very easily. So there could be lots of communication between couples, between relationships, about relationships, maybe relationships that haven't been working. There could be things coming to kind of a sense of balance here as well. Also, having previously had that full moon in Libra, which is all about relationships as well. So they could also have that dynamic kind of still kicking in there as well. So in Aquarius, Mars itself is about making that new change, that vision happen, because Mars is dynamic, it's active, it's action, it's doing. And it's saying it's the fire and the passion that is feeding the Aquarian waters of life. And this is kind of a bit, again, like the manifestation energy that I was talking about previously. And interestingly, while I was writing this, while it was kind of coming into my head, it came through as it being very much of a magician manifestation energy, literally kind of taking place within the Aquarius sign. Because, let me just read the rest of this. So it's feeding the Aquarian waters of life, which is the water bearer, because Aquarius is seen as the water bearer. Although it's an air sign, its actual sigil, if you like, the actual kind of symbol for Aquarius is of a woman holding a urn and pouring out water. She usually has kind of 1 foot standing on the earth and one in the water, or she could be completely immersed in the water. But she holds this urn, or he, it can also be a he, but they pour it out into a kind of pool of water. So it reflects the waters of life, basically, from where we all come and where we've always come from and where we still are coming from if you've been born on the planet. So the water bearer's vision is always for a better tomorrow, the creative drive that stirs the ideal for something beyond what we can yet envision. At this time we have all the elements in Aquarius. So we have the earth energy of Saturn, we have the fire energy of Mars, we have the water element of the water bearer itself being the water of life, and then we have the fact that Aquarius is actually an air sign. So all those 4 elements at this moment in time are actually within the one sign of Aquarius, which I find really interesting, because Aquarius is where it's all taking place. It's what we are moving into. The Aquarian energy is what's going to be kind of kicking in big time over the next couple of years and onwards. So for me, again, that kind of takes us back to the manifestation energy of what's taking place in Gemini with Venus, as I was talking about earlier, the manifestation of the Gemini energy, the magician in the tarot deck. And because Mars is making this wonderful trine over to Venus on a bigger scale, it's kind of bringing in that energy of Venus at the same time as well into that whole kind of creative manifestation in Aquarius energy, which is the love element in many ways that is being kind of pulled in by this Mars energy. The masculine and the feminine are being brought into it, into that whole story, which is kind of the birthing as well. And I just think it just it just blew my mind last night when I saw that. I was just like, wow. It just like, oh my goodness. I know some people probably just think I'm completely off my head, but there you go. I am used to that. So the Venus energy is bringing in the value, the desire and the love from the bringer of light and love herself into the story that is unfolding as we create it for ourselves. So that's what I wrote down last night, as well as this kind of birthing process, which I really feel very strongly is taking place within this Aquarius energy, even though Saturn is kind of restricting it and kind of, you know, trying to hold it back. Birth itself also has to happen at the right time. That's another element here as well, is that you cannot rush birth. End of. I know, I've had 5 children. Birth is a process that has to take its own time. So this brings me to Neptune. And Neptune isn't really doing an awful lot at the moment. It's at 19 degrees 59, 20 degrees of Pisces. And Neptune will be going retrograde soon. So I think it's also kind of entered its shadow area, as has Saturn, as has Pluto, as has Jupiter. They are all going to start going retrograde come this May. They begin to start retrograding, along with Venus, of course, and they will be followed by Mars later as well. When Mars gets into Aries, his own sign, he will also be going retrograde. So at the moment we've got everything moving forward, which is also kind of indicative of this kind of new push towards something new. Everything is forward, everything is kind of in action. So Neptune in Pisces, still there, isn't really making any major aspects to anything, but it is still kind of weaving that dream, and it's got a semi-sextile aspect over to Mercury, which means that the kind of story with Mercury is still kind of ongoing. She's recently, Mercury has been the most recent connection that Neptune has had directly. So that kind of energy is still in play for the last 4 months. And it's kind of still there in the background of what's going on as well. So there is still this kind of sense of confusion about our lives and what we thought was real. There's still, you know, again, like I was saying with that kind of Jupiter and Platon. Yeah. That was a word I made up when we had the Saturn and Pluto conjunction. I was calling it Platon. Okay, that was embarrassing. I completely lost where I was. Let me get my composure back. Okay, so yeah, the Pluto and Jupiter squaring energy of the kind of like, you know, everything being kind of mixed together and not knowing what was real and what wasn't, having to dig deeper underneath everything as well. It's kind of a similar energy that's still in the background, because during that whole period of time while Mercury was in Pisces, which started in February and has only kind of recently ended, that was really when everything just went haywire. Everything went completely haywire, nuts in fact. And the confusion was just so apparent. It was just like nobody really had a clue what was going on. Nobody really understood anything about it. It was all these different stories coming out left, right and centre. People were trying to say it was this and it was this and it was something else, and now the real story is kind of coming out, and still the kind of background noise is the same kind of thing. People are still trying to put forward other reasons, shall we say, as to how and why this is all taking place. But it could be that the real story is yet to be revealed about as and why, like the why of it all could yet to be revealed. The fact that it's happened and how it happened are beginning to come to the surface, I feel. But the bigger story for me, I feel, is yet to be revealed as to why it all happened. So moving on, we have got in between Neptune and Mercury energy, we've still got Chiron sitting there with Black Moon Lilith. Chiron's at 6 degrees 59, 7 degrees, and Black Moon Lilith is at 9 degrees 43, 10 degrees. So they are still conjunct. There still is ongoing conjunction between these two planets as well. Or Chiron and point, Black Moon Lilith being a point. It's not a planet, it's a point. It's the furthest point away from the moon. On the dark side of the moon, when the moon is furthest away from Earth, the point that the moon's dark side is known as Black Moon Lilith, but that point also moves. It doesn't stay in one place. So that's the Black Moon Lilith point. And again, for anybody who's watched my previous videos, I still keep saying I'm going to do that video, and today it came back into my head and I thought, I haven't done that yet, and I keep saying I'm going to do it. I will have to knuckle down and get it done. Saturn. So yeah, they're both in semi-sextile energy to Uranus as well. Uranus being in Taurus, and Black Moon Lilith and Chiron being over here in Aries. Sextile energy, semi-sextile energy, sorry, which means there's 30 degrees kind of difference between them. And it's an energy of things that are changing, coming changes through the healing and releasing of the dark and disturbing, untold, unrecognised story of the collective history. Like something that has been allowed to fester and to go rotten, which needs the collective mind to heal. And in Aries, this has a lot to do with the energy of kind of all the wars that we've been through in our history, or the, like the warrior energy that we've had to live through, the masculine, patriarchal driven energy that we've had to live through, all the atrocities that we've experienced and perpetrated on other people many times over down the ages, all done in the name of kind of survival, if you like. Survival of the fittest. As many weaknesses in the Aries kind of energy, Aries being that kind of very dominant, forceful, Mars-ruled, doesn't like weakness energy. Doesn't like weakness, it's that kind of, you know, big boys don't cry is the saying that springs to mind when I think of, you know, of that kind of energy, you know, which is told to even little toddler children by some of their mothers. You know, if boys fall over and hurt themselves and they start crying, you know, their mothers will immediately say to them, oh, you know, big boys don't cry. And I used to absolutely hate hearing mothers say that to their children. I used to just think that's so wrong. That's just so wrong. But it's that kind of energy. It's that kind of like, you know, you keep it all inside. You don't show weakness. You just kind of fight through everything. And there's been an awful lot of that on this planet. Fighting has been how we've been able to survive. You know, it's how we've kind of taken over other people's land, and our existence has kind of all been about survival and fighting and survival of the fittest being one of the major kind of driving forces in many ways down the ages, which, you know, is a really totally misguided belief as well. And the Mars warrior-like energy is that you survive by any means possible or any means available. So Chiron is here to help heal this outdated belief, and Black Moon Lilith is here to show us our poison so that we can begin that process. Because if we don't see it, we can't heal it. If we don't feel it, realise it, understand it, acknowledge it, then the healing process can't take place. And it is a collective healing. This is about lifetimes of healing, generational healing. This isn't just healing of the individual self, although it is, but it is also about in healing yourself, healing your generational stories as well that are taking place. So lastly, we still have, sitting at the 28-degree point now in Capricorn and making a conjunction with Jupiter, the beautiful energy of the sacred healing space of Clavico. Clavico has been something that was brought to my attention a wee while back, a few months ago I would say, but she kind of appeared to me quite strongly in my tarot cards as well, and I saw her as the star card after I discovered that when she herself was discovered, she was discovered with a natal pattern or natal chart. For those of you that have ever looked at a natal chart, you will know that there's kind of different lines that join all the planets together and tell us what conjunctions or trines or whatever the planets are making at the time of our births. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, there will be a free astrological link in the description box down below for you to go and check out and find out more about your own personal astrology as well as what's taking place at this moment in time as well. And Clavico made this beautiful six-pointed star, which is also known as the macabre. If you don't know what the macabre is, I would also suggest that you go and check that out online. You could just put macabre into a search engine and it will come up with information on it, or you can Google it, or you can put it into YouTube. I'm sure there's lots and lots of videos out there that will explain to you what the macabre is all about. But basically, the macabre is an energy field, and it is created in a 3D kind of form with like a pyramid pointing up and then another pyramid pointing down. So you get like the six-pointed star, but the six-pointed star represents the macabre energy. And it's MERKABA for anybody who wants to go and look that up. And I believe that macabre itself, because it's mer, ka and ba, and it's Egyptian originally, and it means, I think it's body, mind and spirit. I think that's what it means, if I remember rightly. I might have got them round the wrong way, but it's basically, or it could be mind, body, spirit, but it's those three kind of energies that the macabre is talking about. And you can do macabre meditations and actually kind of visualize yourself within them, or them actually within you as well. So very interesting and worth checking out. So coming back to this Clavico energy, she has quietly been in the background all this time since the 12th of January and before then, but it's from the 12th of January she was at that point of the conjunction, the major kind of conjunction that took place with Saturn and Pluto. I think Mercury, Jupiter, there was, I think Pallas was there, and there was a lot of activity all at the same time. Mercury was there, and Clavico was there, kind of holding that space. So while this conjunction was taking place, which was the conjunction of kind of the beginning of the end, shall we say, the major coming together of everything falling apart, Clavico, the energy of Clavico, who is the wife of Chiron, the wounded healer, and although she doesn't do any of the healing herself, she holds that sacred healing space in order for that healing to take place. And so recently, when we had the Jupiter and Pluto conjunction that has just taken place as well at the end of March, she was there as well at the same time while that was taking place. So she's kind of been continuously there amongst all these kind of major changes that have been taking place in our lives. And I think she'll probably, I'm going to have to check this out because I don't know for definite, but at 28 degrees now, she will be moving into Aquarius herself very soon, and she will then also be coming into conjunction with Saturn again, because Saturn will also be going retrograde and moving back into Capricorn. So I don't know exactly when Clavico will be moving into Aquarius. I will check that out, and I will kind of probably tell you in a future video as well, because I would like to find that out for myself. But getting back to this and what I feel very strongly, like I was saying, she represents for me the star energy, and the star energy in the cards is the Star of Hope. It represents hope, and hope is all about kind of not giving up on something. Hope is something that is completely intangible. Hope is something that you can't put your finger on. You can't really explain what it even means, because it means different things for everybody. But hope is something that you know, again, you can't hold it in your hands. It's kind of this really elusive, really, kind of quality. But at the same time, it kind of, it's something that we believe in. It's a belief. Hope is a belief. It's something that we can put our belief into. And in doing so, we can, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's like, you know, sometimes it's all we have, or sometimes we don't have, when we don't have anything else, when we feel as though, you know, everything else is despairing and everything's lost and everything is kind of literally falling apart around us, which is kind of what's taking place at this moment in time. Hope is there as a kind of way to say, like, you know, this is about your trust and your faith as well. And you know, sometimes having that hope, we can actually change the path that we are walking on or heading towards. We can actually change purely by hope what is happening and what should be happening, if you like. So the star, or the star of Clarico, as I like to call her now. She's kind of holding that energy for me, I feel, of hope for us, like this big bubble of hope that we're all kind of surrounded by, because she has been there kind of every step of the way, but she's really kind of in the background because not many people have even heard of her yet. But again, I feel the Aquarius age is going to highlight this, and she's going to come out in all her glory as we move more forward with, I feel, more kind of alternative ways of lifestyle as well. So I'm going to finish that astrological reading there. I would usually do tarot at the same time, but I've decided from now I'm going to separate the astrology from the tarot reading as well. So I'll do the tarot reading tomorrow so that I can focus all my attention on the astrology, so that I don't kind of rush through it and just try and kind of get it out of the way. I want to actually do a full astrology read for the energies of the fulls and new moons. So I'm going to say thank you very much to anybody who has watched this video or is going to watch this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please could you do so. If you have subscribed to my channel, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Could you like my video up for me, please? Because as I say on all my videos, it helps it get out into the bigger YouTube world. And then more people can come back and listen to my messages and maybe find something there for themselves that maybe will even give them some hope too. So on that note, I will leave it and say hopefully I will see you all again soon. Have a lovely new moon. Take care.